there are a couple avenues right now where these next couple matches could go. They're all kind of weird because, for the most part, like the Fairy Tail members are obviously outclassed, and it's different than, say, I'll just kind of go with relatively any of the other arcs, because not the exact same, but it's like whenever we went into an arc and we knew, okay, this is the bad guy grouping. You have the Seven Kin, you have the Erasion Seis, you have the Nine Demon Gates. There's a degree, obviously, of knowing how strong the characters on the main cast side are versus the enemies to a degree. We had a bit of an understanding, say, like going into Tartarus, about like people like Jackal and Tempesta after their fights with Natsu and Laxus. We got a general kind of idea of where they were at. And, we had people that were stronger than them, obviously people like Kyoka and Silver and stuff. But for the most part, like, okay, well, these characters should potentially be fine in a 1v1, while these characters, unless they get some form of upgrade, they are going to lose in a 1v1 and they'll probably need assistance. And then, say, like, going into Alvarez, I think Alvarez, like Tartarus to Alvarez, is just a really good kind of transition, is because of, like, it was very apparent, I think, in Alvarez more than any other arc going into it, that there are only a handful of characters that, like, people, I think, should be able to reasonably say would be fine in a 1v1. Like, against the Spriggan at the time, it was like Natsu, Laxus, Gildarts, Jalal, people like that. It was like, okay, they should, I would assume, be relatively fine in a 1v1. Obviously not in every case, but the general idea that they are around level with these enemies. The difference now is that, outside of, again, I believe that Dragon Force Natsu would be able to match one of these Dark Dragon Slayer Knights for sure, but even in the idea that Natsu matches them, that's like he matches one and there's three more. And Laxus is definitely, the I count Dragon Force when you compare like Natsu, Gildarts, and Laxus. Like, if you don't compare Dragon Force, then Natsu's like third, but if you count Dragon Force, he's definitely the strongest person in the guild. Where it's Laxus being obviously stronger than Urza, as we got to fight for it in Drasil, and then kind of like Gray being around that area. We know where Wendy and Lucy are now after all their upgrades and whatnot. But it's like they, and like obviously Godchill and stuff too, but like they don't stand any chance otherwise 1v1. It's weird just kind of knowing that going into the arc, the only person that logically would be able to 1v1 his opponent, based on what we've seen, because his fight with Alder and whatnot, that he'd be able to handle himself against one of these guys. Whereas like everybody else is, you can't really give it to him, at least as of right now. There are going to be factors later, like, Godjill or Laxus could get like true Dragon Force, but it's something that obviously right now is just left up to speculation. But the matches right now are obviously they're all over the place in terms of like where they could go. The only one that I personally believed was kind of a for sure was Wendy and Haku meeting, just because of the similarities between aspects of their characters' age. The whole cat theme, obviously these prodigy dragon slayers for their youth. So I was like, I figured that was going to happen, and then him developing a crush on her, I figured it was going to happen just because it made sense to me. But when it comes to the other ones, like, say, Natsu and Lucy get freed, you could have Natsu and Lucy go fight Suzaku for the revenge match for Natsu, or you can have Natsu and Lucy run into Misaki and Kiria, which I think is the best balanced one, because you could show Natsu fighting Misaki. You don't have to have them go all out, but just kind of like get a general idea of where they clash and stack near each other. And then Lucy versus Kiria for a revenge match for Kiria would be really cool, because like Natsu versus Suzaku would be really cool, but I think the Misaki and Kiria would be more balanced for the two of them, because I think Lucy should be able to take Kiria now after Elentier, but obviously that's up to speculation. But it would give us two fair matchups right there. There's also the idea of Misaki and Kiria running into Gray and Urza. I think that's also a pretty logical one. Like, because I think that one's also balanced, because you have Kiria, who should be weaker than both Gray and Urza, but you have Misaki, who should be stronger than both Gray and Urza. So you have, like, one lower and one upper fighter against two fighters right in the middle. And with Godjill, there's obviously the possibility Natsu and Lucy or Gray and Urza could show up to help Wendy, or like there's obviously like any type of occurrence where like these characters could run into each other. I think the most likely thing, and then this is just for me, the most likely thing was that Gray and Urza will fight Misaki and Kira, because I think that match is just logical for them for being also like in a two pair, but like they haven't really had any form of confrontation yet. And also I have a Misaki theory I want to put out hopefully before we find out anything about her, because I had a fun theory that was just kind of like a wild one, but I figured it was kind of entertaining and just a general idea, and I want to get people's takes on it. But with Panther Lily and Carla being switched, I think it just makes sense for Gajil to show up and help Wendy. And I think together the two of them have like a much better chance, because like Wendy's different in a regular fight because you're not going to be looking at it the same as like, oh, like these two characters combined. You like Wendy's level of utility is just highly beneficial to anybody around her. So if she like super buffed up Gajil, that's obviously not just like counting as Gajil showing up. That is now a avenue for this character to become much more powerful through the aid of Wendy, as we've seen. And on top of that, Wendy would be able to help in the fight because, you know, she can just set it to cancel any form of status effect, cancel out the plushie stuff. Like there's definitely a lot of areas that I'm fine with going. And on top of that, like I'm hoping that other characters get back up. I mean, there's the whole fact that Natsu and Lucy were counted out, but I don't think they're done for the entire arc. So I'm hoping Scullion and Madmo get up, mostly Scullion, because I really want Scullion to get a fight, get some feats, and like do some stuff, because I do really like Scullion and I like to figure out more about its character. But for the most part, like this next chapter is I think more just directed more at like a big jumble of potential fights based off of like what would make sense if these matches went up against each other, how would they actually fare against each other and stuff. I think the only thing really in terms of like a big hope I have for the chapter, and it doesn't even have to be anyone specific or all three. I just want one of the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights, one of them, to tell us what their attribute is. If we could get Haku, Kirin, or Misaki to say, oh, I'm a blank Dragon Slayer, that's all I require. That's all I really need to be satisfied when it comes to Sully's, because like the fights are just getting, like they're just starting to really roll up and get kind of structured and set. So I don't want anything, I don't expect anything too crazy. But other than that, I would appreciate if you comment below, thumbs up the video, but friend the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. But that, appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.